Georgians are going to their mailboxes this week and seeing their latest round of state income tax reductions coming through them, courtesy of the most recent session of the Georgia General Assembly, and more specifically, to his political credit, Governor Brian Kemp. This is Political Update here on Atlanta News First and AtlantaNewsFirst.com for Friday, June 6, 2025. I'm Tim Darnell, always happy to be joined talking politics with my good friend and colleague and one of the true faces on Atlanta News First here in Atlanta, Rick Folbaum. Rick, we were talking about what we're planning this week's discussion, and really outside of some of the other more notable political news that we'll cover here in a few moments, Governor Brian Kemp has really staked a pretty solid claim of prestige and success on behalf of the Georgia Republican Party. He's crafted a party here in the state of Georgia that stands for fiscal conservatism and returning money, as he so often says, to the pocketbooks of hardworking Georgians across the state. He's really created a political machine here in Georgia that's really setting up the state GOP for hopefully what they view as some future electoral successes.
I mean, you could say he's leading a roadmap for Republicans, not just here in Georgia, but nationally at a time when the federal budget is being debated and fiscal conservatives in the U.S. Senate are upset about the impact that the budget that's now being proposed could have on the federal deficit. Here in Georgia, it's quite the opposite. This state has a surplus, and because of that surplus, Governor Kemp has really been able to do a lot of different things, including sending refund checks, one-time refund checks to Georgians around the state, and that is something that obviously is very important, very popular with voters. Anytime you get a check and money being put back into your pocket, that's a good thing. So from the standpoint of Republicans who are looking to succeed Governor Kemp in the governor's mansion, because he, of course, can't run again due to term limits, it's going to be interesting to see exactly how closely these Republican candidates try to align themselves with the Kemp economic policy, one that has really worked very hard to build up this surplus and to cut spending and have limited government, to shrink down the size of the state government here in Georgia. All of those things are part of the Kemp economic agenda, and something that I think a lot of Republicans who are looking to run for office in the upcoming elections are going to try to do exactly the same.
We'll talk about the governor's race in a moment, but going back to the Kemp legislative agenda, there are a number of new laws going into effect on July 1st, and we have a list of those laws on AtlantaNewsFirst.com. It's been one of the most widely read and most downloaded articles on our platform in recent memory, really demonstrating a lot of interest that our readers have in terms of new laws that are taking effect July 1st. One of those is beginning the process of lowering the state's incremental income tax to an eventual low point of 4.99%. As you were saying, this is just a good, solid political roadmap that the governor has set forth.
That's right. And, and it's going to be interesting not just to see how closely the Republicans try to hew to the Kemp agenda, but also how Democrats try to respond to it, because it puts them in a pretty tricky spot, because on one hand, you can't criticize, or it's very hard to criticize
putting money back in the taxpayers' pocket.
Putting money back, exactly, giving money back to taxpayers. But at the same time, Democrats are going to have to stand on their principles, which is that that this economy has left a lot of people behind, and that it is not right to be sitting on such a big surplus when there are real needs here in the state of Georgia that some of that money could be going towards, of course, infrastructure programs to help the homeless, other types of social welfare programs that Democratic candidates tend to talk about when it comes to election time. So it really just sort of sets the battle lines for what's going to happen in the months ahead.
One of the Democratic candidates who is announcing today, Friday, June 6th, for governor, State Representative Derrick Jackson. He is one of, so far, he'll now be the fourth Democratic contender hoping to challenge for Georgia's governorship next fall, 2026. He'll be joining former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, businessman and local pastor Olu Brown, and State Senator Jason Estevez in the race. So far, we only have one Republican in the race right now. That is Attorney General Chris Carr. We are awaiting. Everyone is presuming we're going to hear eventually from Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. On the Lieutenant Governor side, there are several people already vying for his job. Earlier this week, State Senator John F. Kennedy, I should say, out of Macon, who the top-ranking Senate Republican, President Pro Tem, has joined several other candidates for a job that has not been formally vacated. Georgia's number 2 job certainly seems to be attracting a lot of attention.
Yeah, I think that there is really, it's just sort of a foregone conclusion that Burt Jones is going to toss his hat into the governor's race. And so that's why, even though he hasn't officially done that yet, you do see Republicans lining up and saying that they would like to run for lieutenant governor if he in fact vacates that position. But you talk about some of the candidates on the Democratic side, with Derrick Jackson getting into the race. And here's somebody who brings a very interesting background to his candidacy. Of course, he serves as a Georgia State Representative. His district is in Fayette County. But listen to this. He has 22 years of military service, a decade in the private sector, 5 terms in the Georgia House of Representatives. And so this is someone who, comes in again with a very diverse and varied background that I think a lot of voters are going to be interested to learn more about him. And then some of the other candidates you mentioned on the lieutenant governor's race, John F. Kennedy, of course, he has announced his candidacy. He has served in the Georgia General Assembly since 2015, and he is a well-known figure in state politics. He's been pretty prominent, and he, of course, has sort of made a name for himself by backing the tort reform agenda that Governor Kemp was able to push through in this last legislative session. So it'll be interesting. There's Steve Gooch is also has sort of put his name in the race, and so far only Josh McLaurin, the state senator here from here in the Sandy Springs area, has announced his intention to run for lieutenant governor.
Josh McLaurin so far is the only Democratic contender who has announced moving down the ballot. We do not know or have not heard about any future political plans for Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. But the next constitutional office on the list, as I mentioned, is Attorney General Chris Carr, the only so far announced Republican in the gubernatorial race, meaning that his race will be open so far. The only contender to jump in is also the first candidate who filed paperwork several weeks ago. State Senator Brian Strickland out of McDonough, I believe is his location. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize if I got his.
No, I think it is McDonough.
McDonough.
He chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he's been involved with criminal justice reform and mental health care legislation. And so, his campaign here for the Attorney General underway, and we'll see. There are other Republicans who are considering a bid. No Democratic candidates have declared yet, so that's a race, obviously, that I think remains one that we'll have to watch and see who gets involved. I think, all of this will play. What typically happens is that everybody's waiting to hear about a potential candidacy, and then once that person either declares that he or she is in or out, then the other candidates kind of fall in line and the picture becomes a little bit more clear. But as of right now, for a couple of these jobs anyway, it's still a little fuzzy out there as far as who the candidates are going to be.
So setting up 2026, where we will have an open race for governor, definitely an open race for attorney general, more than likely an open race for lieutenant governor, and then we'll see about what future political plans Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger has. Moving on to the other major topic that is dominating national and really international political headlines, President Donald Trump is continuing efforts to pass his budget and spending bill through Congress, called most prominently in the media and on social media Trump's Big Beautiful Bill. something happened very recently within really in the last 24 hours. It's kind of a major development here in Georgia where U.S. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the most ardent and strident supporters of President Trump in Congress, someone who actually voted for this spending and budget bill, went back quite vehemently on social media on Thursday, saying that she would oppose the budget and spending bill, which is now currently being debated across the hall in the U.S. Senate, if it came back to the U.S. House for any kind of budgeting resolution or compromise. She is citing her objection to a couple of pages in this 1,000 plus page piece of legislation that would remove, she says, any kind of state regulatory ability on the future use or development of AI or artificial intelligence, citing that without any kind of statewide regulatory impact on the use of AI, unemployment in her Northwest Georgia 14th Congressional District would go up and really skyrocket. My question to Rick Fulbaum is this. Is it too much for to ask or to expect our elected officials to actually read a piece of legislation before they vote on it?
I mean, a lot of people were commenting on how remarkable it is that Congresswoman Greene said, if I had known that this was in the bill, I wouldn't have voted for it. Well, she did vote for it, and presumably she would have read the bill prior to casting that vote, but she's essentially admitting there that she didn't read through the entire piece of legislation. She is certainly not the first lawmaker to cast a vote on a piece of legislation that she has not read from top to bottom, but it certainly does open her up to criticism. The interesting thing here, though, is that she might have the opportunity, the rare opportunity to vote in favor of a bill and then to vote against the same bill after it goes through some changes in the U.S. Senate. But she can kind of have it both ways, depending on how all of this shakes out.
Well, the public feud between President Donald Trump and Elon Musk is making international headlines around the world. Elon Musk, a very strong Trump ally, now apparently they have driven a wedge between their relationship because of comments each of them made on social media. Moving forward, what is your take on first of all, do you think this budgetary and spending plan put forth by the president, known as the Big Beautiful Bill, will ever make it out of the U.S. Senate?
It'll be very interesting to see. I stopped making predictions a long time ago when it comes to these types of things. I do know that they've got to get something passed. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, he has proved to be pretty good at getting something done at the end of the day, even if he has to break it apart and only pass a small portion of it in order to keep the government funded. But in this case, it's very interesting with Elon Musk, who of course was such a huge advisor to the president during the first few months of his administration, leading up the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency efforts that really aimed to trim the size of the federal government. For him now to be coming out as he has ever since he left his position 6 days ago, and now to be talking about the bill in such terms, to be talking about the president in such terms, calling for impeachment, saying let's form another political party, Republicans, who's with me. It really is a blow up in this relationship in such a public way, one that we typically do not get to watch unfold in real time the way that we have this week, where you could sit and literally watch the back and forth between them as it was happening. Something that I think will, be something that we'll have to watch and see exactly what happens here, because we have the world's richest man, arguably, against arguably the world's most powerful man. And who's going to win. I think that from Elon Musk's perspective, as someone who has seemingly unlimited amounts of money to spend, he might have the upper hand here in the long run. And in fact, he pointed that out. He said, Elon versus Trump, keep in mind, Donald Trump only has 3.5 more years. Elon Musk said, I'm going to be here for decades. And then that really is something to keep in mind. It seems like he's looking to play the long game here in his battle against the president.
It is a fascinating political dynamic that we're watching unfold, as you said, in real time. This has been Political Update for Friday, June 6, 2025. A reminder that you can watch all of our Atlanta News First podcast on our YouTube channel and also on our Roku app. If you have that particular app on your streaming and visual devices. Also listen to all of Atlanta News First podcast, Decatur Ditch, Behind the Investigation, Overtime, and of course Political Update, wherever you download and listen to your favorite podcast. For Rick Volbaum, I'm Tim Darnell. Thank you for watching and listening to this edition of Political Update on Atlanta News First.